What's happening, hardscapers? This is episode 7 of the How to Hardscape podcast, where we talk to you about how you can start and grow your hardscaping business. Tune in every week as we cover a subject and interview industry leaders on how you can grow your hardscaping business, from new installation methods, techniques, tools, marketing, financials, and so much more. We just want to say thank you to everyone who's taken their time to listen to these episodes and to share them on their Instagram page and their Facebook groups. We really appreciate it. We really love seeing those screenshots of the images of you listening to these episodes and sharing them. It really means a lot to us, and we love your feedback. We love hearing from you about these episodes and even commenting on things that we've said. It really helps us to make this podcast better and to better serve you and to get more guests on the show. And on today's episode, we're joined by Chris Yancey of Perma Edge. He's here to talk to us about the edge restraint that you should be using on your open graded bases. Let's jump right into it. Today we are joined on the show by Chris Yancey. He is the founder and CEO of Perma Edge, an alternative product for plastic edge restraint, and the subject of this interview today. Chris, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Hey, thank you, Michael, for having us.
I just want to get started here to get to know a little bit more about yourself and basically your background in the industry. Can you give our audience a little bit of a rundown on that?
Yeah, sure, I'd be happy to. So I've been in the industry for about 30 years. I worked for another contractor where I ran his hardscape division for about 11 years. And of course, like many guys in the industry, it was time to break away and spread my own wings. So I started my own hardscape company. I've owned and operated. I still do to this day. You know, I think once you have a love for the industry, it's hard to break away from that. So, yeah, I currently own and operate a hardscape company in Ohio. And my background is the hardscape industry.
How about Perma Edge? When did this kind of concept start to take shape? Where did this all come from?
So, being in the industry, I use some of the standard edgings and things, spike-driven edgings and things for about 15, 16 years, and it was one of my biggest pet peeves. We weren't getting warranty calls. Within our company, we did about a 3-year warranty, but it was just a pet peeve of mine. I felt like it was letting us down. So like many other guys, I looked for a solution, and I did start using a toed concrete edge for several years, and began to start researching and kind of mixing some things, and I'd been thinking about Perma Edge and what it could offer. Of course, we didn't have a name at the time, but what it could possibly help other contractors if you had a product like that was tested and proven to perform. So it had been in the works in my mind for about 8 years, and then about the 4th year we started development.
Awesome. So how long have you guys been in business? And basically, what is Perma Edge for our audience that doesn't know?
So Perma Edge, we've been in business since 2016. The tail end of 15 and a lot of 16 was spent on development, engineering, and testing. We did not sell our first skid of product to the very end of 16, but we used it on our own projects and some friends in the industry on their projects, so we could do field testing about a year prior to that. So Perma Edge, for the guys that aren't familiar, is a similar to concrete in appearance, but it's much different. So it's a hand troweled edge. Basically, it comes dry in a bucket, and you'll mix it with water. They'll mix it with water, and so you'll put it down the same way that you would use concrete, but it's engineered to outperform and kind of correct some of the pitfalls in a freeze thaw climate that concrete has.
Mm-hmm. And what is it made of? Like what's involved in the process of creating it and at the job site mixing it?
It's a proprietary mix, but what I can tell you is, the only similarity that it has with concrete is the Portland cement. Many of your standard concretes, or a lot of the bag concretes that contractors use as an edging, are basically limestone-based aggregates. So your gravel and sand in the concrete is limestone, and limestone is a very porous aggregate and absorbs water like a sponge pretty much, and sometimes installed underground under sod or mulch or whatever, really sometimes never completely dries out once it gets wet. So one of the key things, we use non-porous aggregates, which is a big part of what we're doing with Perma Edge. A lot of guys ask about how strong it is, how rigid the PSI, and it is strong. It's the PSI is comparable to a high strength concrete, but that's really not what we're going for as much as permeability and flexibility. So we do have several admixtures in there. One is basically we do chemical air entrainment. So it makes Perma Edge over 40% more permeable than a standard concrete. So as water gets into the product, number one, it can't get into the aggregate. And all that inert stuff around the aggregate, it does create porous air pockets. So the water can get out pretty rapidly, and similar to a lot of the clear and open graded bases that guys are using today, it has that void space in there. So if it does get caught in a freeze situation, it's designed not to blow apart. And we have several other admixtures in there that make us, exact numbers from testing are about 783% more flexible. So it's designed to float and flex with your base, whether it be a crushed dense base application or a clear open graded application. As long as the contractor does their portion correct and extends their base out properly, does proper compaction, it's going to float and flex right with your base and not work independently. And then as an added protection, there's a macro fiber in Perma Edge that's comparable to having a wire mesh in concrete. So we don't claim that it's never going to crack. Sometimes you'll get a sprawl crack while it's drying. Don't let that scare you. It won't come apart with that macro fiber in there.
Mm-hmm. Nice. And obviously, with plastic edging, the main thing is, those spikes being heaved up with the frost cycle. With Perma Edge, it's that perfect solution for those open graded bases where spikes can't adhere to the base, and also the flexibility is the big thing in comparison to the concrete edging. Is there any price comparisons that you guys have done with these plastic edgings, with the concrete edging? How does Perma Edge kind of fall in between them?
Great question, Mike. So, as we travel around the country and into Canada with sales, of course, we ask this question a lot because, when we were designing Perma Edge, that was one of the key factors. There's lots of things that you can add to concrete, but you just don't want to price yourself out of the market. Guys aren't really going to pay $5 a lineal foot for an edging. So it was important to us, number one, that it be better, the quality, and that it be somewhat comparable in pricing. So, I hear different things depending on the brand names these guys are what you're using. It's pretty comparable in pricing. One bucket, and I think we'll probably get into this a little deeper, but one bucket is comparable to about 3 strips of edging because you're going to get 20 to 25 lineal feet per bucket, depending on whether that's a clear or dense base. So compared to, 3 strips of spikes and edging, in a lot of markets, it's identical in price, but about 50%, it tends to be a little higher, maybe 20 to 40 cents a lineal foot more than plastic and spikes or aluminum and spikes. Then you compared to concrete, it's a big increase. I mean, and guys are, most areas are getting concrete for $4 a bag. But it's not apples to apples by far, and that's why we developed. So it is comparable in pricing to the standard edgings. You get into concrete, and of course, it's going to be much cheaper. And but I tell guys, I see, I can install an interior nail on an exterior fence, and sure, it's going to hold. It's just not going to hold as long or perform as well. And with looking at a lot of the workmanship and the time that these guys put in, that we all do in the industry, we spend a lot of time putting our base in properly and doing cuts that we're extremely proud of. And you see a lot of pride on social media, YouTube, and everyone is so proud of their work, as they should be. And so to secure your edge, which is one of the most important parts of the project, certainly one of the most final parts, it doesn't make sense to use an under par product. So as we see guys, some guys are going with longer warranty terms and things like that. And our goal is to create a product that, one, will keep you past warranty terms for sure and beyond, because most of us get a lot of our work from referrals. So that's what's priceless to us. One of the first things to go is the edge. So, sorry if I answered you long, gave you a long description, but the long and short is it's pretty comparable to standard edging, but much more expensive than concrete. You're going to have about a 10x increase. I'd say the average cost is around $44 a bucket to contractors for Perma Edge.
Gotcha. And just to reiterate, using that concrete edging, I've ripped out jobs before that have that concrete edging, and it's all broken up, it's all cracked. And like you said with Perma Edge, you said something like 780% flexibility in comparison to concrete edging.
Yeah, we always claim over 700% more flexible because we want to be true. We've done several rounds of third-party testing through the University of Dayton, and the actual numbers, the average is 783%.
Gotcha. And obviously the permeability of it is also an important factor in comparing it to a concrete edging. And then with an open graded base, using plastic edging, those spikes, they just don't adhere to your base. So definitely a great alternative to the two. Now, I know it's a little bit of a more of a visual thing, but can you kind of give us a brief description of, once you get to the job site with your bucket of Perma Edge, what do you do? How do you apply it to your base? Like, where do you go from there once you have that bucket of Perma Edge at your job site?
Absolutely. One thing I do want to elaborate when we talk about cost is the speed. So if the guys are using a concrete toed edge, your speed's going to be the same. It's the same install. But guys that use that, everyone knows that is familiar with a toed edge, it's about 80% faster to install than pounding spikes. So you have to think, if you're paying a little bit more for Perma Edge over plastic and spikes, you're going to greatly make up for that with the speed of install. A lot of the comments we get, if you're using an edging where you've got to, cut snips out to do curves and things like that. A lot of the comments we get on jobs that we go out and demo for, they'll say, you guys are done edging and we just still been cutting the snips out. So it's much faster. I did want to elaborate on that. But yeah, so you're not, the contractors won't have to change anything about the way they're running the project now. And most contractors complete all their cuts, have their soldier and sailor courses on, and then it seems to be standard practices. Okay, it's time to poly sand and put our edging on. So typically we have a guy or two putting the poly sand in, or whatever sand they're using, and start installing the Perma Edge. So if you're using a sand, if you're still using a dense base with sand, when you break the sand away to put your edging down, the sand stays put. If you're using a clear, permeable, open graded base, when you go to remove your chips, some of that will roll out a little bit. So the beautiful thing with Perma Edge is when you put it down, the guy can kind of finger tuck or use a hand trowel to fill that void before you level it, before you hand trowel it out. So it fills that void. So it's great for that. But, a bucket will do about 20 lineal feet on a clear base and 25 feet on a dense base. Standard procedure is we've made it easy. You're going to mix 1 gallon of water per 5-gallon bucket. So it takes the guesswork out of how much water to use. And it also, if you mix it with 1 gallon of water, that product's Perma Edge is going to perform to exactly what it was tested for. So typically we'll mix, if we've got 40 or 50 lineal foot or more of edging, we'll mix two buckets at one time. I don't recommend doing 3. It makes the mixing process much harder, but 2 at once is great. Usually have a couple guys mix up 2 buckets. You have one guy, once you break away your sand or your chips, your bedding layer, come along with a scoop shovel and distribute the Perma Edge along the edge, and a second guy will come through with a hand trowel while he's distributing it and put and float it out. We do have a lot of videos on social media that are great for guys that want to try it or using it, because I do find guys that are using it for the first time and they've never seen it done. They make the process a lot longer on themselves. You really just need to strike off the top about 2 or 3 passes and keep moving. And we only recommend that you come up on the base of the brick about 1/4 to 1/2 inch prior to compaction. 1/4 inch really if you're doing sand, because you're going to get a little more compaction, and 1/2 inch if you're doing clear base, because you're going to get a little less compaction. What I will say, when a guy calls me and says, "Hey, Chris, you said we get about 25 lineal feet on a dense base, and we only got 18. 9 times out of 10, it's because they came way too high with it. And we've done a lot of testing. There's really no benefit at all to come higher up on the brick than 1/2 inch. You want to hit the paver low and just block in your bedding layer. So, and you also want to promote grass growth. Depending on the thickness of your paver, you might only get 1.5 inches of soil right at the edge. But that's another thing with the permeability of the product. We have no issues with grass growth over top of the Perma Edge.
Excellent description, and that's perfect. I'm gonna, link Perma Edge, the website, and all the tutorials that you guys have on the show notes for this show, because there's a lot of great resources there, a lot of great things to learn about this product. But Chris, when is this product going to be available in Canada, and where is it available in the States right now?
So in the States, we're available in about 24 states currently. Basically, from Tennessee and Kentucky north all the way that butts up to Canada. We're available in Illinois, Michigan, New York, everything north of Kentucky, basically. We do have a couple distributors in Florida and Texas. We are made to combat the freeze thaw, but also some guys are finding a lot of benefit in those other states because of the humidity and constant irrigation. It will hold up much longer than the concrete. But so we do have a dealer locator on our website for anybody looking to see if there's something near them. Canada, we are working very diligently, and I believe we will be available at many dealers in 2020. We're working with one large paver manufacturer. I don't really feel at liberty to just discuss their name right now, but we are working with a large manufacturer to have Perma Edge available in Canada and a couple other smaller dealers. But I'm very confident that it will be readily available in most your high traffic areas in Canada, and we're really excited about that. I've gotten many messages on social media and some other avenues. We just did the H&A show in Louisville that just passed. And we had many guys from Canada that are really wanting to try and use the product. And so we're excited about that.
We're excited to see it when it gets here. Chris, thank you so much for joining us and teaching us a little bit more about this product and everything, all its benefits and everything it has to offer. Do you have anything else you want to leave our audience with, and where can our audience go to learn more about Perma Edge?
So, yeah, Michael, the one thing I will say, being a contractor my whole life, we do package Perma Edge in a 5-gallon bucket. It's in a patented 5-gallon bucket that has a handle on the bottom of it. It's a very durable bucket. And we get asked all the time, could you put it in a bag? Maybe you could sell it to us cheaper. And we could, but as a contractor, several things were important to me, and mainly just keeping my brothers in the industry in mind is, to me, there's nothing worse than getting ready to use a product and the bag's broken or it got rained on, and now you've got to send a guy up to the store to get some new product and all the lost job site time. So we've even had advisors that say, hey, you guys need to start bagging this, but we really, that was extremely important to me and our company. The manufacturer or the dealer can keep it in their yard. They don't have to store it inside. And it can also be shipped with your pavers and to not worry about rain. And so when you open up that bucket, you know that the product's ready to go. So I did want to touch on that. We have a website at www.permapaveredging.com, and you guys can also find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, and there's lots of videos. And as always, if anyone's ever interested, they can always feel free to call me. We have a toll-free number, 844-4-EDGING. Press 1 for Chris, and I'd be happy to talk to anybody that wants to learn more or has any questions.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Visit us at howtohardscape.com for more information on open graded bases and edge restraint for them. Let us know what you want to learn in future episodes by reaching out to us on our social channels. We're at howtohardscape everywhere, or just send us an email at contact@howtohardscape.com. We'd love it if you subscribe to this podcast, left a rating and review on your favorite podcast app. Again, really helps us to get this podcast out there and into more people's ears, which will bring in more guests on to the show. We look forward to meeting with you next week on the How to Hardscape podcast.